Hello and welcome to our next module. Uh, this module is really a continuation of the last one in regards to congressional districting, but at this point this is where I like to talk about the U.S. two-party system really as it relates to congressional districting. So let's get started. Um, the United States is characterized by a political system with two dominant political parties, Democrats and Republicans. We all know that, right? Now, let me pose a question for you. Do you think we will ever have a three-party system? Okay, I like to ask this question here and there of my students, and basically it's a loaded question. I usually get a couple of people might say, well, yeah, and some couple people might say, well, they might look at me and say, I don't think so, because they think I've got something up my sleeve, which I do, because no, we will never have a viable three-party system, and it does get back to how we elect the members of the House of Representatives. So again, that sure goes back to how we district for the House of Representatives. So when we elect the members of the House of Representatives, we characterize those districts as single-member district pluralities. All right, that's a fancy way of saying winner take all. So I don't have to get a majority. I just have to get more than anybody else. Okay. So think about this for a second. People tend to vote for their favorite candidate that has a chance to win. So one of the things I like to do is just kind of couch it this way, most people can relate, is that, are you really going to get up early in the morning on voting day to go and wrestle with the lines and things like that, or rush after work to wrestle with lines before the polls close, or deal with early voting just to throw your vote away? That's how most people feel. Now, I don't get me wrong here. Everyone has the right to vote for the candidate that they want to vote for, regardless. But most people will vote for the lesser of two evils when it comes down to it. Most people just won't go through the effort to vote for someone who doesn't have a shot to win. All right. So again, people don't want to throw their vote away. Now, as a result of this, the majority of votes gravitate to the two primary parties, right? It just works out that way. It works that way in our system. It also works that way in the British system, all right, when they vote for members of parliament. So again, the British model works the same way as ours. Now, when we come down to this, the system moderates political dialogue to the center, all right? So if you think of ideology as a continuum, and you see that vertical yellow line there in the middle, as central, the blue and the red, think of that as the Democrat Republican parties. For the most part, they're very close together, right? One's a little bit left of center, one's a little bit right of center, okay? Minor parties rarely win elections in this scheme. Again, getting back to that whole notion of voting for the lesser of two evils of the viable candidates. Okay? Now, what happens when a party strays a little bit too far left or too far right? If that does happen, that party tends to lose heavily in elections. They've deviated from that moderate central position of ideology of the general population. All right? And once that does happen, that party tends to moderate policies to regain that central appeal to the voting electorate. Okay, so what's the takeaway here? The way our system is set up, when I took this class years ago, the professor said Democrats, Republicans, tweedledee, tweedledum. They pretty much agree on 90% of everything. And so with that, we tend to think that they are much farther apart than they really are, right? But again, we're kind of driving the bus here, because if either party moves a little bit too far left or too far right, then we kind of snap them back in line when it comes to election time, and that party does not win like they could have or should have. So it does moderate general ideology in policy making. Now, you might be thinking, well, Mitch, how else can we do this? What's another way we can look at? So right here, if you think about the proportional representation system, the PR system, this is used in French politics. In this system, you vote for a party, not a person. And so each party submits a list of possible representatives. And so you see down at the bottom, don't hold me up to the math or anything like that, just for representation, but you see like the Democratic Movement, Socialist, the UMP, Green, Centrist, and I've just got the wackadoos sitting out there. In our system, the Green, Centrist, and the wackadoos, yeah, they run for election, they may be part of debates, they get their ideas out there, but they'll never be a part, or rarely be part of Congress or a legislative body. In the French system, that if you have, say, 100 people in Parliament, depending on the percentage of vote that a party gets, that's the number of people they will put there into the Parliament. So if you look out there to the far right, the wackadoos, 2%. That means, in just simple math, a Parliament of 100 people, they actually get 2 seats. Okay? So in this system, you do actually have representation there. It doesn't necessarily force the ideology to the center. So again, the party will send the number of representatives to Parliament based on the proportion of votes received in the general election. All right. All it is they just start going down their list of the people they've got selected they would send to Parliament until they get their allotted seats taken care of. Now, if you think about it in terms of ideology, minor parties can and do gain actual seats for representation in French Parliament. And forgive my drawing of a bell curve here. So what you do see, though, in French politics is more diversity of ideology sitting in that chamber. All right. And so what it does do, it requires coalition building to form policy, to create policy, because you don't necessarily have that, give or take 50% of the body in resting with one of 2 parties. Here you've got multiple parties with people sitting in the room. Again, this is just a different way of looking at it. Didn't want to just throw out there how our 2-party system works. That's formed based on the way we draw our congressional districts, but I also want to give you an idea of how another system does it. But one point before we draw this module to a close, if you think about, well, what if another party rises or something like that, how would that work? Well, we do have some empirical evidence from the British model, is that about late 1800s, early 1900s, you had the Conservative and the Liberal Party. Well, the Conservative Party kept getting bigger and bigger. They kept winning more and more elections. So what happened? They started fighting with each other, not necessarily the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party is still around, but it's been relegated to minor status. And so the Conservative Party grew and grew and then split between the Conservative and the Labour Party. And so the Liberal Party just kind of went off, minor party, and then you had the Labour Party emerge as that second party, taking it over. So with that, that's the end of this module. Go back and review it as needed. And with that, we will see you in the next one. Thank you.